Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Get it going, honey.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson with the Technology Fail event. Not person. Yeah.
Who are you with? The Technology Fail?
No. We've had so many technology fails today, but honey, I'm with Merrill, the technology guru.
I'm actually your husband, to be clear about that.
Yes. And we're so thankful that you're here.
Yes. Do I have any hair left?
You've been pulling it out,
I've been pulling my hair out for the last hour. Anyway, we are going to pull off another great show.
An episode of Rock Solid Radio. But before we do get into our new episode, I really do want to mention last couple weeks we had some really great shows, we thought, on divorce and marriage and predictors of divorce and how to divorce-proof your marriage. And so if you're just tuning in to Rock Solid Radio and you have no idea about what we're about, please go back and check out those last couple shows because we thought they were really important. We actually have been using them quite a bit with our clients, and we feel like they're really valuable. But part of that show, I felt like we missed the mark on sharing what we think is the number one way to divorce-proof your marriage, and that is prayer. Mm-hmm. And inviting God into the relationship and asking Him to guide you. There is no better way. When I was in the seminary, the statistic that really stuck with me was that less than 1% of couples that pray together, divorce. And I don't know of a statistic that rivals that.
Yeah, and I mean, we do talk about that all the time. We need to spend a little bit more time in that last show. Just the idea that, speaking from a man's perspective, oftentimes if I'm lost, I will just keep on driving to try to figure it out on my own. Yeah, I'm lost in life all the time. But just to try to figure it out on my own. And you create all kinds of what you think are great strategies until finally you just throw your hands up and you want to quit. And so that's when we finally ask for help. And that's kind of the point here with prayer. Mm. The idea that the faster you humble yourself and you go in and you ask for some direction, how about asking direction for your marriage from the master of marriage, the designer of marriage, and that is God. Yeah. And Christ, it was the example with the church. And so I think part of the idea of humbling yourself rather than constantly trying to figure it out on your own, humbling yourself and taking it to God, taking it that way by way of prayer.
So please check out those shows. Another thing that we talked about in a show a couple weeks ago on the predictors of divorce was the number one predictor of divorce, and that was contempt or disrespect for your spouse. And so that really does trickle down, into our show today, where we're really going to talk about disrespectful behavior and talk and attitude toward our kids are bringing toward you and others. And we're really going to talk about how to handle that.
Yeah, mostly we're going to look at this today as a parenting show.
Yes.
And part of that is we're directing it to the parenting phase because it seems to be a little bit of the thing here lately that's walking in our office. And so lately here, the last couple of weeks, it's like every other parent, that group that we talk to, or, mom and dad trying to figure out how to raise their kid. The question is, how do I deal with my disrespectful or rude or smart aleck kid? And so maybe that's a sign that we should do a show on it.
Yeah, but we're not going to deny the fact that disrespect has just started. This has been a thing that we've seen through generations. And
that's a great point.
Let's be honest. I think that we even had some disrespect when we were growing up.
No, I mean, in your house. I know in your house, but not mine.
Not that you ever were disrespectful. If we had your twin brothers and your sister sitting around this table, they would probably say something very different.
Oh, they'd love to throw me under the bus.
So how about just a little confession time?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so my nature as a child was not one of disrespect, not to pat myself on the back. I did not. I was a pleaser.
I can see that.
Yeah, I was a pleaser. I didn't like when mom or dad were upset. So I generally just I was a helper in that way. But I will tell you that as I got into my teen years, as I got into my teen years, and I have two younger brothers who happen to be identical twins. They're the troublemakers, actually. It wasn't me being
Yeah, we should have them sitting in the show.
It was them.
They would really have stories.
But we were pretty rough around the house. Lots of just wrestling, crudeness. That's just how we interacted. I'm not trying to excuse it. It just was what it was. And we would drive my mom crazy. And as we got into our teenage years, there were times where we'd get her so upset that she'd go off on us. Well, my mom, by her nature, was a yeller. Okay, she'd, I think, just get emotional. She's that.
There's five of you
that
within
Italian
6
blood,
years.
that Italian blood running through her, and she'd just start yelling and stuff, and she would smack us. Okay, now. I mean, she'd not like smack us across the face. She'd smack you on the arm or whatever, and she'd get so mad.
Stop.
And, hon, as we got older, 15, 16 years old, she'd get all fired up, and she'd start on us. And at that point, it really wasn't about how we were interacting with each other. It was like how to disrespect mom.
You were pushing her buttons,
and we'd
weren't you?
start laughing. She'd smack us, and it didn't hurt. And so we would laugh. And, I think back now and I think, but I will tell you this. That only really happened a few times. And then she learned the next better strategy.
Let me guess. Your father.
Yeah. Wait till this news gets home
Wait
to
till
your
father gets home.
And I'll tell you, and anyone here that knows my dad's always been short in stature, but big in a lot of other ways. And, man, he would bring it home. He would bring it home, and it was a shame that he had to be the deliverer of us falling back into line while at the expense of us disrespecting mom. And so I have asked for forgiveness many times for that, both to her as well as God. We were just punky, and that's just where we were. Not cool.
No.
Not cool.
Yeah. Wow.
How about, whoa. Okay, so wait. So I just sort of laid it out there. Let me take your halo off. Okay. Now, tell me about you there, Miss Linda.
Now, wait a second. Now, why would you think that I would be disrespectful?
I didn't say you were.
Okay.
I'm just assuming. Aren't you like the rest of us?
Well, to be honest, I had a fear of God for my mom and my dad. So honestly, disrespect toward them, I don't honestly remember.
Your family will listen to this show.
I'll send it to mom and dad. Yeah. Mom and dad, if you're listening, tell me. I don't remember a lot of cases, honestly, that I talked back to them because it did not go well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I will say that as a teenager and an all-girl high school, that we were not kind to some of the teachers that we smelt as weak. And
you what?
In other words,
you smelt like you.
Well, and I don't mean actually, maybe anyway. No, but there's just some teachers that were just so mild. Yes,
you could see it.
That you can kind of get away with things, and they wouldn't tell your parents, or you wouldn't get in trouble. And I had a French teacher like that, and she was rather heavy set, and we would call her names, and we would laugh, and I'm not proud of this at all. I'm just saying though that. The only reason I was disrespectful was knowing that I could get away with it. And that, man, if she had called my parents, if I had gotten written up for it, it would have stopped.
Right.
But because we just kind of laughed, kind of like you did with your mom, and you knew you could do it, you kind of smelt just that weakness and felt like you could just do it.
You could smell the blood in the water.
Yeah, and we were sharks, and I don't like that. I'm kind of ashamed that was me as a teenager. But well, let's be clear, because both what you said and what I said was based on the idea of we're going to be good if we suspect we're going to get caught. Yeah. And so we have an integrity issue. Integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody's watching, or when you don't think you're going to get caught. And so the idea that we'd be willing to hedge our bet or to change our character because we thought we could get by with it. And so that is the big crux of disrespect and why kids do it and why even adults do it. We're going to get into this a little bit, and we want to spend some time helping
you guys in your homes deal with kids with disrespect. We do not want to spend a whole lot of time bashing the culture because that's a powerless move. Yeah, you can get mad and get on Facebook and whine about the teenagers or whatever it is, but it really doesn't do anything to change the core problem, and the core problem actually starts in your home.
Yeah, and that's really a victim mentality to kind of just say, woe is me, this is the problem, and to not have a solution or to not be involved in the process of change. And so, but before we do that, hon, we probably should thank our sponsors.
Yep.
We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for coming alongside Rock Solid Radio. Without them, we could not do what we're doing. So thank you to you guys and to those that are out here listening and watching. If you're on YouTube or a podcast platform, hon, we do this because we do see clients every day in our office in West Harrison, Indiana. And so if you're listening or you're watching and there's some way we can help you, please, I would love for you to contact us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 7625, 812-576-ROCK. And so we love to walk alongside you in parenting or marriage, whatever it is that you got going on.
Absolutely. Also on board with that is we are going to start a beginner's finishing class. Finishing is an exercise that specifically we do. Nobody else does it because it's what we created.
You invented it,
That's what we call it, finishing. And so we're going to start a beginner's class. It'll actually be Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. And, we have a lot of folks that show up or they come in and they're like, oh, what is this? Mm-hmm. And it takes a couple classes just to kind of get the feel for what it is. And so we're going to designate a Tuesday evening to just helping people learn what finishing is, to see the cardio benefits, to see the flexibility, the strengthening, the conditioning, all of these different things. So we're going to focus that in on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m.
Yeah, so that was an exercise that you developed over 10 years ago, a piece of equipment that you developed, and it's a low impact, all body workout that instead of lifting weights, you're basically sliding them on a slick table.
Teaching your body how to move.
Yeah, so we love it, and we have a lot of folks that just come and are part of our classes 6 days a week. So if you would like to try it out, now's the time on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So, also, hun, your strong dads, I've been pointing some of my clients that way because I do believe it's an awesome band of brothers that men come together on Saturday mornings. Tell them about that.
So our Strong Dads class is as strong as ever, although there's a big group of them going out and doing winter camping this weekend.
They might not survive.
And this happens as we record this. This is going to be the coldest weekend of the winter so far. And so I'm hoping my group doesn't permanently get small.
Oh, gosh. Stop that. Hey, we're praying for you guys out there.
Yeah, so they're going to have a good time. But anyway, our Strong Dads class is running very strong right now. What a great group of guys. What a great spectrum of guys in terms of from age to the different challenges that they have. But all of them come in, hit their 45-minute workout, do some good fellowship, some fun, some teasing around, and then we come in and really center in on a discussion. And the discussion is always just very heartfelt because each guy gets their opportunity to bring it in.
I was going to say, you guys are like a bunch of washwomen sometimes.
Wait.
No, because you
honey, it's Strong Dads.
After you're done, you just like, you think us girls are bad. Yeah. Sometimes you guys are just gabbing all morning long.
Well, it is funny when guys start to feel comfortable. That's what happens. Cool. And and even if you've never attended, the door is open. All right, and it's not a group where once you're in, it's set. Come on in. These guys, each group is each class is a standalone class. So let's come in. We got to get the topic, babe. Let's get rolling.
Yes. So back talk, disrespect are not new to our culture as we're talking about, but we're really seeing a rise of disrespect, and we are seeing a lot of parents coming into us at Rock Solid Family saying, how can we deal with this? Give us some tools, and how can we help our kids learn how to speak and respect authority and the parents. So this is not something new.
No, it's not new. Even goes back into the time of Moses, and clearly there was a time there where Moses was pulling his hair out because there was just a lot of aggravation and disrespect and lack of civility within the Israelite group, and it even was so large and it's happening that God intervened, right? And that's how we got these things called the 10 Commandments. And so that didn't fix the problem. It was just a tool that allowed for civility, all right? And so that's really what the 10 Commandments really started out. We need to be more civil. And so this disrespect thing is not new. It goes in waves in a culture. And really, if you look at it, a lot of it happened in the 60s and 70s in the United States. And a lot of it came from kind of getting a mixed idea of what people's rights were. You know, I have the freedom to voice my opinion, and no matter your age, no matter who's in charge. And, you know, there's merit to some of that. But as I've always said, when I was working with parents in the school setting, just because somebody's smart, that doesn't mean that they have the ability to have good values at that time. You know, just because I have a smart kid and he's this 8-year-old is a genius, that doesn't mean he has a good value system or any value system other than himself at that point. Yeah. And so disrespect is so much more about me trying to control a situation. Okay, think about that for just a second. If your kid is disrespectful, all right, it's part by the way, that all kids will come into a period or a time of disrespect. And disrespect is not something that I throw my hands up and start screaming and yelling. Disrespect is that reach out by a kid in this case to try to exert some level of control in a situation.
And we see that starting at the terrible twos. You know, that's when they really are trying to kind of make their own stand and do their own thing. And so we have this battle, right? The battle of the wills between the parent who feels like they're in charge and they've been put in, you know, as responsible over this child, and then this child wanting to do everything on their own. And so we see this very beginning. And so mom and dad, if you have a toddler, now's the time to nip it in the bud. Because I have seen, and you have seen, hon, we've seen toddlers and preschoolers who will put their hand on their hip and they'll shake their finger at their parents and they'll tell their parents how it should be. And I'm thinking, oh, dear Lord, now's the time to take a stand and make sure that we understand who is the boss here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that we could let that just slide, right? Yeah. But we want to
laugh at it.
We want to talk about, okay, when do we start to address this and how do we start to address it, okay? Yeah. And so here's the hard part that we really want to challenge everybody with first. The cultural disrespect that you see, whether it's out in general public or if it's on social media or it's in the news, whatever it is that you see, you have to first understand how you're contributing to it. And we contribute to it by, one, our acceptance of it, and two, sometimes even our promotion of it in our own home. And, you know, you may not think you promote it, but you might promote it just by not dealing with it, okay? Right. You didn't put the brakes on it. And so we're going to first start to talk about how we deal with this in our own home, and not be shocked that your kid could be disrespectful, again, because that's part of them trying to exert their own influence. And there is a time for that, but we first want to make sure they have this thing called a value system. And
you know, hon, you brought the 10 Commandments, and I think another important part of the 10 Commandments was to acknowledge who is God. He is God and I am not. Yeah. And so it was very clear from the very beginning when Moses was given those is that we need to right size our God and put our own selves into place. And so that's what we got to do with our children. You know, God has put us into their lives to protect them and guide them when they are minors, when they are children. And so we need to take that very seriously. But hon, I kind of want to ask you something, because I get this question a lot from couples and parents who kind of feel like in order to get respect, they have to pound their fists and they have to yell and scream and they have to demand, you need to respect me. And like I hear that and I see that, and I have parents coming in and thinking that's the approach to take. And I don't think that's what we're saying here, right?
No, it's not. So if you would go way back in our library of shows, one of the things that we talk about in terms of how we parent is to distinguish the difference between an authoritarian parent and an authoritative parent. And if I see a lot of disrespect in the home, I can tell you that I either have a very sheepish parent who's not involved at all, or I have an authoritarian. Either way, I have the extremes of that behavior. And so an authoritarian is the parent who is basically being disrespectful in the sense that they're demanding order. And they're not demanding necessarily in their actions. They're demanding it in their voice and their tone and how they're handling things, and basically a dictator type role. And so one of the ways that we always know that is, I'm in charge. Yes. You better listen to me.
Right.
Okay. And so the authoritative basically exerts their control or their authority on how they operate with respect, how they continue to carry out the rules and the expectations without missing a beat, and involving this thing called emotion.
Yeah.
Hun, how many times do you think we have brought up the word emotion in our shows?
Yeah.
All right. And so an authoritarian is somebody who runs with insecurity and high emotion.
Yeah.
An authoritative is somebody who runs with more security and they keep their emotions in check.
Hun, I think that is such an important part of what we're talking about today, is that you can't pound your fist and demand respect in a disrespectful way. You can't get respect with disrespect. And so you have to approach your kids. I'm not saying being sheepish and passive and just rolling over, but I am saying that you can't yell and scream and demand something that you're not showing. And so you got to first show it and model it, the way you talk to your children and the way you treat them. Again, you can do it with authority, but respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's go back to the idea of God's word. All right. And so rather than allowing the culture to help me decide what is respect and what is disrespect, that is another reason why we subscribe to God's word, because it could be based on my opinion. That's one of the things that we run into all the time. Oh, it's just more acceptable for you to talk back to your parents, or to not refer to them as Mr. and Mrs. when I'm talking to an adult person. That's what the culture says. And so part of it is understanding what God's word says. And in Colossians 3:18-21, which this just was a perfect, simple scripture, Hun, that just really says it all. Okay. Here's the headline for those set of verses: Instructions for Christian Households. And it's very simple. Starting at 18, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as it is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. Each one of those really just lays out a type of manner that we hold ourselves to in the home and in the relationship. Okay. And when I just go, okay, wait, this is what does God say? For me to practice these things and have that expectation on my kids, that's what I want to carry out.
Yeah. So as parents, how are we talking to each other? I mean, that's huge. Wives, submit to your husbands. Are you undermining your husband in front of your kids? Are you correcting your husband and overmining what he says? That's not submitting to your husband. But Hun, loving me is part of that too, and how you treat me in front of the kids is important.
It is important. And none of us are perfect here. And I've lost it. I've said rude things. And you may have too.
Me too.
And we've talked wrong to our kids. At times we've embittered our kids with different stresses. And man, to be reflective of that and step back and go, okay, wait, I've got to regroup. And I think that regrouping thing is really what we're asking in each of our homes.
Yeah.
And so, if we get it all right, which is never going to be a perfect scenario. But if we get it all right, it doesn't mean that we're still doing a good job with teaching our kids civility and respect in the home. Because one of the things that we deal with more now than any other generation has is, what are we allowing to leak or walk into our home? And so, Hun, this is even like, I'm going to call it out. Like, we used to be able to comfortably watch Walt Disney programming and go, oh, it's Disney. And now, Hun, you're actually the one who pointed out to me the shows that our kids would pull up on Disney, and the level of disrespect from person to person and child to adult. And again, it was all in fun. Remember that. Like when the show's going on, they're silly and giggling and laughing, but it's the tone that undermines the authority of the parents. And, when my 8-year-old sees that, why would he? This is Disney. Mom and Dad let me have it on the TV. Why would he not think it's okay to bring it right home to me?
Absolutely. Whether it be, the TV shows. I mean, I grew up watching the Brady Bunch and Little House on the Prairie, and you would never back talk Mr. Ingle, I mean, seriously, or Mr. Brady. And
Laura, I need you to go out and find a switch off the tree.
Yes, Daddy. So, I mean, that's what I grew up with. And so that's what I, really did model my life after. But now our kids are seeing really disrespect, even on funny little kid shows, even cartoons, not to mention YouTube and, the social media that's out there. It's sad.
So, Hun, let's get in and be a little bit more concrete about how we can help our parents out there in their home, specifically if they're tuning in to this point in this show, it's because they probably have a little smart aleck at home. They probably have some disrespect going on. So let's talk about how we can help our parents, okay?
Yeah.
So the very first thing is I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to recognize the situation that we're in, the situation that the kid is in. When I talk about recognizing that, I am looking at a lot of different things. I'm looking at was there anybody else involved? Were the other kids involved? Were there neighborhood kids involved? What's the age of the kid? Okay. Hannah, let's share the story about our oldest child, who was probably 5 or 6 years old and who was out in the yard cussing.
Well, I think you shared that show.
I know. So I don't want to get into that whole story. Yeah, okay. But that whole idea, that's not my kid.
Right. And we had to nip that in the bud really quick.
And let me tell you.
Yes, we did. And he remembers that.
that. And so I'm trying to keep perspective, because sometimes, like I said, it is an exertion by that child to take a step out. And it's not maybe of their constant daily walk that they do these things, but they're reaching out for that first time. So I want to assess that situation.
Yeah. And if you have a son or daughter who's really back-talky and mouthy, is it back-talky a word?
If you say it, I'm not arguing back talking.
Very mouthy, sarcastic with a little bit of twist in it. I need you to monitor what you're doing and how you guys talk to each other. I had a family come to me with a daughter who had a mouth, and she was so sarcastic, so disrespectful. And I had to really call mom and dad out and say, that's the way you guys talk to each other.
Yeah.
And so that's what she's modeling. That's what she's seeing modeled. So you got to really show it if you want to get it back.
Can we say that we've been called out before on that too? Just for sarcasm a lot. And so we it's that fine line. We like to have fun with that, and we know who our audience is. And then sometimes we don't. Yeah. Sometimes it lands wrong. And so being a little bit more mindful, especially when you got little ears around you, that your sarcasm's probably going to be abused by that child because you didn't help them understand how to carry that weight.
You also have to start really young about how your kids are asking for things. If they're basically telling you, hey, you're picking me up here and you're taking me here, or you're buying me this, you really need to look at it and say, okay, we need to rephrase how that's being asked. Is there a question mark in there? Is a please and thank you in that? If you just kind of let that happen, I mean, I know, hon, you've done this before where you literally just ignore what they said like you didn't even hear them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the idea here is initially we do want to make a statement. We want to make a statement at the youngest of ages, how our house rolls, how we talk to mommy and daddy, how we ask for something. Pleases and thank yous and manners like this are something that all of a sudden don't just appear when they're 18. Okay.
And you wonder why you got.
Yeah. And sometimes, people act like that, like, oh, well, they'll learn. Well, how about helping them? And so lay down the expectation. And so this is great. I see this a lot of times in people's homes where they kind of put their home constitution or their banner of what they stand for or believe, or their missions and values. They'll hang that somewhere in the house. And it might just say something like, in our house, we ask with a please,
right?
Or we always say thank you. But it's that kind of statements that have to be a constant backdrop in your home for your kids to know, this is how our house rolls.
Yeah. And I've heard some parents before who have literally called certain words a bad word. For instance, shut up. They literally have told their children, you're not to speak that way to your sibling, to a parent. To them, it's very disrespectful. And so I've actually heard a child before, like, oh, you can't say that. That's a bad word, which I love the fact that the parents are making them realize how they're talking to one another.
Yeah.
And so you set the tone on what it looks like in your home.
Yeah. So once you've set the tone, you've laid out the expectation for your kids, and you've even ignored it once. Okay, I'm just not even going to. When I say ignore, that means I not that I let it go. I'm just not going to give them what they want in that moment. Okay, but let's say it continues. All right, it is extremely important for you to not think that, oh well, this too shall pass. No. Especially if they have had any level of success in their mind, not your mind, in their mind with their disrespect, they will continue. And so it's very important that you lay out very clearly, here's what's going to happen when I see or hear or experience that level or that type of disrespect again. And this is where parents have to get together, right? This is not a matter of, well, it might be disrespectful to you, Linda, but it really doesn't bother me. No, this is where we have to come together. Yeah. All right. And we have to say, Linda says, I just don't like when I see those eyes roll. And maybe in my mind, I'm like, what's the big deal? But if we're going to work together as a team, our kids have to see us present together as a team. Yeah. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, so you're seeing that quite a bit. You're seeing that happen. Okay. How are we going to deal with it?
Right.
Is it going to be a consequence? Is it going to be a loss of a privilege of some sort? And so those kind of things. On the other side, okay, and so Linda and I are firm believers of carrots and sticks, okay? And so the consequence side, the punishment side is always that sort of stick side.
Stick, yeah.
But the carrot is when you hear your kids say something in the nice way, in the right way, reward them with nothing, no physical reward. It's just simply like, hey, thanks for saying please.
I
appreciate the way that you said that.
Or opening the door.
Yeah, that shows them the honor and the respect right back. And again, that encourages them to repeat it.
And I love it when other people hear them and say and comment, because it really just lights them up. They love to know that people noticed. And so that's important, hun. And I love the fact that you say on the same page, because if you're undermining each other, just like we talked about the sharks in the water and smelling the blood, like they're going to smell that. They're going to smell weakness. They're going to smell division, and they are going to use it to their advantage. And so you've got to get on the same page. You've got to have those quiet moments behind a closed door that if you don't agree on what the rules are going to be or what the level is going to be of the talk back and forth, then you've got to do that quietly, privately, without the kids around.
Yes. So let's go on a little bit farther and say, okay, so the kid is continuing, or the kid is hitting the button at the wrong time, flipping the switch on you.
We've never had that happen before.
And so this is critical for you figuring out how you're going to get through that moment. And we mentioned it a little bit ago, but I want to circle back around, and it's that whole idea of understanding how you are getting emotionally triggered. See, chances are your kid got triggered. That's why they're being disrespectful. And because they've got triggered, they are trying to exert that control. And so all of a sudden, they come back with disrespect to you, and guess what it does?
Fires
it emotionally gets you fired up. I'm going to whip your butt, son.
Oh, man.
And so you get emotionally charged, and you very likely, if you don't have your head on straight, you're going to jump into the same level of disrespect back to them. So oftentimes when you feel that, you need to just step away.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're going to let it go.
Right.
I mean, we're going to step away, and we're going to let our emotion come back, and then we're going to come back and deal with it with a cool head.
Okay, so I'm sure I'm not the only one that's like going, oh gosh, that was me. You're listening or you're watching and you're saying, I already blew it. And I threw a fit, I slammed my fist, I screamed and yelled, I cried in front, whatever.
I've never seen that.
Oh, goodness. I would say take a time out, and maybe it's been a while, okay? I need you to go circle back around with them, and you need to apologize. Here's the respectful part on your end. If you've lost it, if you've blown it, if you've compromised what you know is your values and the way you want to handle your home, then go back and apologize and say, I'm sorry, that was wrong of me. but here's what we need in our home. And this is what's going to happen the next time that happens. And so you've kind of set the stage. It's almost like everybody's on the same page of what this is going to look like in our home.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Circling back around, maintaining calm, but still, we did not give up on the expectation of respectful behavior.
Right.
And the next thing here really is that idea of, if I'm going to expect that respect, then I have to be consistent with that. What happens so often, and I am guilty of this part, because I can have different moods that allow different things to happen that I wouldn't allow with the other mood. And so I could be silly and goofy and having fun, and there could be a level of disrespect, and I could maybe be right in there chiming in with it. I would say more on the line of sarcasm.
Yes.
Okay. And then all of a sudden, the next day I come in and I'm not in that right mood. I'm grouchy, I'm tired or whatever, and I'm dropping the bomb on them. Okay. Yeah. And so I actually caused the problem. Again, that doesn't mean I'm going to allow them to do that. So please hear that. But I am causing the confusion because, well, yesterday we did it and it was fine.
Inconsistency.
And today, and so
Huge.
It's my inconsistency that is basically making the kids step in the trap.
Yes. So, as we wrap up this week's show, we needed you to take a survey of the level of disrespect that is in your home. Again, we can't change the world unless we start in the house with our own family. And so take a survey, kind of listen to the way that you talk to one another and how you interact with one another. See who it is, see what it involves, when it's triggered, see how you're reacting to it. That's all part of the assessment tool.
Important for you to recognize how you are contributing to the problem.
Yes.
You're the adult, you're the leader.
Yes.
Okay. So we want to look at our kids and say they're brats. They're disrespectful. Okay. But you are the leader in the home. So at some point in time, you set up a tone, a permissiveness, something that allowed it. You didn't establish that authoritative control in the house. And so recognizing that allows you to start to change how you're going to address the kids. Okay.
Yeah.
And then at that time, really, it's about establishing those manners for the house. This is how we're going to roll in our house. And, this is about civility. And if we can move it through our house, well, one thing I will tell you that is really cool. When you evaluate this and start really working in your home, the first people to recognize when we're talking about kids here are your kids' teachers. The people that they experience every day. And so that is, as a parent, that message when you hear a teacher say, they're just so polite in class, all right? That tells us that they're learning how to be civil, especially where they need to be with others.
And Hun, that reminds me, you all need to be on the same page. So you need to let that child know, just like my parents should have. And again, I was in high school and they didn't know a whole lot was going on, but they need to have that communication with teachers that respect is happening in the classroom too. And so if there's disrespect going on at school, there is consequences at home. And so we all, coaches, teachers, policemen, you name it, we need to show to our kids that it happens everywhere, not just with mom and dad.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is our show. That's how we're dealing with the disrespect that's going on in our home. Hopefully you understand it to be a lot more empowering in your hands, and you're not having to just throw your hands up like I can't do anything about this. Yeah. So we just want to say thanks again to our sponsors of Maxwell Construction and Casey Outdoor Solution for them coming alongside of us. Hey, if you're struggling with the idea of disrespect in your home, even if it's not one of the kids, if it's a parent to parent or spouse to spouse, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or 812-576-7625. Reach out to us. I mean, a lot of this is just kind of drilling down and seeing how you're actually handling yourself in the home.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Yeah, you did such a great job.
Oh, my goodness. Thank
We
you.
finally pulled it off the ground. Nice.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.